want me brain dead and asleep. You want us trapped while you all laugh behind the scenes. You want us sick, you think we're dumb. You want us blind and you want us drugged. You want us poor while you get more of everything. But you don't get to tell me what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell me what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so I don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. You want us tricked, you want us numb. You want us scared and you want us stung. You want us shocked and you want us fought in every way. You want our minds, you want our time. You want us framed up in your crimes. I hope you know that it's time to go and we're taking names. 'Cause you don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell us what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and we burn the books. So we don't believe a single word you say. Want you out and want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. La 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. 'Cause we see la 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 la.
All right, and it goes on, and I'm going to end it there for the time being. People, good evening. It is Sunday. Let me make sure. Apparently, my mic was interfering with the song, so I muted it. I was not going to make the same mistake and be whistling yet again the song for everyone who doesn't yet know. 5 times August, liars, cheats, and crooks. And as I say the title, liars, cheats, and crooks, it goes with the rhythm of the song. The song is available on Apple Music. Make it trend number 1. I don't, let me say, I shouldn't say I don't care that some of you don't like Apple. You should set that disdain for Apple aside and make it the number 1 in whatever category the song is. 5 times August, liars, cheats, and crooks. 5 times August has some of the most amazing, beautiful songs that will define the last 5 years of our collective lives. All right, and I brought up a chat that said, yeah, Biden on his way out. Let's start World War III, people. We're going to get there. Before we get there, I want to play something. The people are melting down. They are having absolute abject freakouts on the internet. Kyle Kalinske is having an absolute certifiable psychological meltdown. A bunch of Kyles. Kyle Griffin is having one. What's his face's wife? Kyle Kalinski's wife. Crystal Ball. Meltdown. It's Alan Lichtman. Meltdown. People are melting down, and it's, I say, hilarious to watch. And I don't know when I'm going to get fatigued and have to put them on mute, because it's outrageous. Forgive the swear word. There's a swear word in here because Kyle is an idiot. Kyle swore in his tweet, and so in order to keep with the theme of his tweet, I had to swear in mine. Secular talk. It's ironic because Kyle Kalinske, his handle is called Secular Talk, when he embodies the elements of religion without the respect for a god, which is sort of like worshiping himself as the religion. It's ironic. His talk is not secular. It's thoroughly religious, but bad religion, because he doesn't have any overarching principle of greater being. Kamala didn't mention race, gender, trans people, pronouns, Latinx, cancel culture, political correctness. And she did mention patriotism, freedom, owning a gun, like we believe that, representing all Americans, like we believe that, cracking down on the border. This is anybody who tells you she was, quote, too woke is just fucking lying to you and caving in to bullshit far-right framing. And I mean, I have to ask him, it's a sincere question. He'll never answer. It's an amazing thing. I know that these guys see these tweets, and I know that they deliberately ignore me, which is almost more of a victory than the block, which I would also celebrate. This is a sincere question. Are you effing stupid, or do you just assume all of your followers are stupid, Kyle Kalinske? Literally everything you said in your tweet is wrong, not just wrong, a brazen lie. Are you stupid? Or are you just relying on the stupidity of anyone is stupid enough to follow? I just put this together in 5 minutes. But remember what he said. She never mentioned pronouns, wokeism, gender, trans people, whatever. Everything he said is a lie.
Good to see you, Senator. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
How are you? And thank you guys. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
She, her, and her.
Look at her. I want to vomit. I actually want to vomit. Look at her face. This is 2020, people. So Kyle Kalinske, the weasel rat that he is, he'll say, well, she didn't mention it during this election cycle. You're damn right. She might not have. I don't think that she didn't, because on her freaking website to apply for a job, it had more pronouns than policy people. They had who, H-U, as a pronoun on her website to apply for a job this election cycle. But look at her disgusting, proud face.
Her and hers.
She, her, and her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Kamala. I thought you grew a penis in the last 40 years. I was going to call you he, him, and his.
Mine too.
Good for Cuomo.
All right.
There was a specific case, and when I learned about the case, I worked behind the scenes to not only make sure that transgender woman got the services she was
transgender woman, i.e. a man in prison, got the services he wanted at taxpayer dollars.
Deserving. Yeah. So it wasn't only about that case. I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California.
I love you back.
I love you back.
I grew up.
So I don't know. Does that qualify as Latinx? I love you back. The Kamala Harris. I mean, I'm like sounding French Canadian and not even Latino. I love you back. She's psychotic.
The children of the community are the children of the community. We will hold so.
By the way, the children of the community are the children of the community because they're the children of the community, and the community owns those. Communism, by the way, other than being a tautology, communism.
Social media platforms
accountable. She didn't talk about censorship.
For the hate infiltrating their platforms, because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable as a community.
I stand before you as the first candidate for Vice President of the United States of South Asian descent.
My mother and father, they came from opposite sides of the world to arrive in America. One from India and the other from Jamaica.
It's repulsive. Can you imagine what the world would look like today if she had actually won? By the way, they're still counting votes. They're still counting votes. It's November 17th, and they're still counting votes and celebrating these idiots. I think, I don't want to wrongly accuse someone of being an idiot. I don't remember who. They're celebrating the fact that they're still counting votes, and of a batch of 25 or 24,000 that came in, 21,000 went to Kamala and 2,500 went to Trump. Keep counting, people. By 2028, they will declare Kamala the winner. Holy crabapple heck, people. Good evening. This is going to be a very special show because Barnes has yet to take his victory lap, the well-deserved victory lap from the election results. And I know everybody out there, you got questions. I've got questions. I like to pick the brains of people. And I like to pick Barnes's big brain. Barnes's big brain. I like that. It's a good alliteration. So we've got questions and we're going to cover it and we're going to talk about what the heck is going on. Pennsylvania has 3 more days of votes to count. Yeah, and California's got until the end of the month, plus another 6 days. Look, speaking of fraud, because by the way, I put it, if you're still counting votes for an election that happened on, I have to phrase this properly. If on November 17, you are still counting votes for an election that occurred on November 5th, there's a word for that, fraud. And by the way, speaking of fraud, our sponsor of the evening, it is a product that I use myself, that we as a family use ourselves. I want to tell you about a crime that's happening in the U.S. called house stealing, also known as title theft, where criminals can transfer your home's titles into their name with just a single document and wipe out your equity without you even knowing it. Many of you know, not from Florida, many of you know I'm currently living in Florida, which sadly has become the hotbed for these types of crimes. There's a family in Sarasota, Home Title Lock caught a cyber thief from New York trying to sell their property on a popular real estate website. The theft had fraudulently changed the title, but Home Title Lock quickly detected it and restored it back to the title of the rightful owner. Imagine if they hadn't subscribed to Home Title Lock, it would have been disastrous. If you're not monitoring your title, these criminals can get away with this, leaving you, the homeowner, to deal with the aftermath in court. The best way to protect your equity is to triple lock protection from our friends at Home Title Lock. Triple Lock is 24/7 monitoring, alerts, and restoration services. You can get a free 30-day trial and a free title history report when you use the promo code VIVA30 at HometitleLock.com. Use the link in the description below. It's all there, by the way. It's in the description of the video. That is HometitleLock.com, promo code VIVA30 for 30 days of protection and a title report for free. And it's an amazing thing. Like, we don't have that I know of, that type of fraud up in Canada. And I have discovered over the last 2.5 going on 3 years, there's a lot of beautiful things in Florida. In fact, it's an amazing place. Wouldn't change anything. Insurance up the wazoo, home insurance, car insurance, and title theft is a real thing. Check them out, HometitleLock.com. They're amazing. All right, now we're live everywhere. So share the link. By the way, we're gonna break some personal bests tonight, and I'll get to some of the donations, or as we say, they're called donations in studio. But I want to bring this one up because it looks like Lori Bell has just become a member of our above average community. Lori Bell, welcome to the community. I'm going to get to everything that I can. And if I miss some of the super chats, please do not be miffed. And if you're going to be miffed if I miss a super chat or a Rumble rant, don't do it. We get to the tipped questions in locals at our after party, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And for those of you who are new, we start on all 4 platforms, I guess: YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, and vivabarneslaw.locals.com. And at a given point in time, we vote with our feet, vote with our eyeballs, and head on over to Rumble, then Locals, to support the parallel economy. Let me bring up a few here. Let's see what's going on here. What happens if Trump's picks, Gaetz, for example, are not confirmed? Does he have to pick someone else, or can the position be left vacant? I happen to know but not understand the procedure, that there's something called they can go into recess and then name people to fill the positions up until the next election or the next interim election, but they can't do it too often. But I'll wait for Barnes to get in for that one because I don't want to misdescribe it, and I've got my own personal questions about this. It was Kyle Griffin. Here, check this out. Oh no, this was on the subject of Gaetz. It's an amazing thing. Like, you've lived through it, and now you see it every time that it happens. I was too young when what's his name, Clarence Thomas, was getting confirmed, and then out of the blue, out comes Anita Hill with sexual impropriety accusations against Clarence Thomas. And Clarence Thomas, at the time, in a speech that would go viral 30 years later, referred to what was done to him as a high-tech lynching. That the powers that be don't like seeing an independent thinking black man ascending the ranks. And so under the I don't know if it's under the tutelage or at least under the leadership of Joe Biden, engaged in what was referred to as, by Clarence Thomas himself, a high-tech lynching. For those of us who didn't live through that, although I remembered it, because we all remembered the hair on a can quip from all of that, when Brett Kavanaugh was going to get confirmed, and then they discover Christine Blasey Ford and a story that's 35 years old of sexual improprieties at a house party in the 80s. And then you understand how they go into their bag of tricks and use the same tricks over and over and over again. Now, just go find sex, go make sex accusations up. Matt Gaetz has been named or selected by Trump to be the next attorney general. The markets of Kalshi don't seem to be too convinced that he's actually going to get the confirmation, because he's, I don't know, it was at 30 some odd percent. I'm not invested in any of in this. Am I invested in the attorney general? Even if I'm wrong, because I'm not. I need to pick Barnes' big brain. It doesn't seem like there seems to be great fear that Gaetz will not get confirmed. But you see the stories coming out, and I say these stories, people need to go to jail and then to hell for these stories, because that's what they deserve for this. Kyle Griffin, who's never been one to shy away from spreading malicious propaganda. Oh, where does he work again? Let me see here. Oh, yes, that's right. Wait, whoa, one second. He was at MSNBC. Okay, good. Oof. Executive producer, The Weekend, MSNBC. That's this Kyle Griffin. See, the thing about this is he's throwing me off. I want to like him because he's got the clip from the best episode of The Simpsons ever. This is the episode when Lisa becomes a vegetarian. You don't make friends with salad. And then at the end of the episode, the pig that got stuck in the hole from the dam gets launched into space and it's flying through the air with a little apple in its mouth and looks so happy. He's got the best episode of The Simpsons in his bio, in his banner. He's got a pug in his profile picture. These are typically, this guy, he's like that animal in the wild that looks cute and cuddly, but is actually venomous. So like there's some animals that pretend to be venomous so they get left alone. And then there's other ones that pretend to be innocent so they can get you. That's what he is. I'm sort of being funny about this, but he writes, NBC News confirms a woman told the House Ethics Committee earlier this year that she once saw Matt Gaetz have sex with her. Can you believe this? This is like, I saw somebody having sexual relations with someone who is a minor, 17 years old, according to this witness who was not trusted. She says she saw him doing something with someone who she thinks was... None of it makes any sense. I mean, what are they at a like partaking in group sex? Is like this is like an orgy or something? The woman's lawyer says she testified before the committee, quote, that she witnessed... I don't even want to repeat these filthy, slanderous allegations. People need to be sued for this. Like the government officials that repeat these lies, they get immunity. Not Kyle Griffin. By the way, the story, it's amazing what Kyle Griffin tells you and then what he doesn't tell you. Let me just get to the good see the punchline of this. ABC News was first report that Leopard had said his clients had testified before the panel. Quote, Merrick Garland's DOJ cleared Matt Gaetz and didn't charge him. Are you alleging Garland is part of the cover-up? A spokeswoman for Gaetz said Friday. Gaetz, 42, who represented Florida's District 1, covering part of the Florida Panhandle, was investigated by the FBI on sex trafficking allegations involving a 17-year-old woman and was not charged with any crime. The federal investigation ended last year. Gaetz has said he was the target of an extortion plot. It's an amazing thing what's that guy's name again? What Kyle will tell you, and then what Kyle will not tell you. And then they throw these slanderous accusations out there so that even when the story dies, even when no action is taken because no action is warranted for being taken, somehow in everybody's memory, Matt Gaetz will always have that tarnished stain of something really, I don't really remember what, but I remember, didn't someone come after him for sexual oh yeah, isn't he that perv that was accused of something, even though it was investigated and not pursued? And now everyone's going to say, Viva, you don't trust the FBI when they do investigate, and then you trust them when they don't investigate. Yeah, because if they could, have gone through with a story that would have satisfied their politically biased, corrupt narrative, they would have. And so when the FBI goes and raids Mar-a-Lago and falsifies evidence that they lay out there and put their little book covers on that say classified when it didn't say classified, and then they don't charge Matt Gaetz, that means he's even more innocent and didn't even deserve the investigation in the first place. I'm more inclined to believe he was a victim of extortion. And then we got some other stuff in a second, but let me just see if we're not missing anything over on CommiTube. We got over on CommiTube, not a banned account. Barnes Esquire hurt his back carrying this election. I was going to say he hurt his back doing a celebration dance, but I don't want to say that. David March says if they don't confirm him as AG, DeSantis can appoint Gaetz to Rubio's Senate seat. Checkmate 4D move by Trump. We'll see what Barnes has to say when he gets in here. Let me make sure that I actually did give Barnes the link. Hold on, let me just make sure. Text him. I don't know. He was there. Okay, and then we'll get to this afterwards. Let me see what's going on over on Rumble. Okay, we got Cheryl Gage says Barnes big brain for Supreme Court. It's not too late for Barnes for Attorney General, people. I don't want to. Barnes isn't on the list yet. Although, oh God, Jeff Clark is on the list. Jeff Clark, who you might remember from such podcasts, sidebars as Viva and Barnes with Jeff Clark. I was looking through. We had J.D. Vance on back in the day. Oh, back before he was who he is today. Let me scroll down here, and then we're going to get to the next story until Barnes gets here. Ooh. Well, I could have brought this up earlier. Alan Derelict Lichtman. If you haven't seen this, you want a good laugh. End wokeness, but everybody knows end wokeness, but they get these clips. And like, I realize how it works now. We've all got our communities and the information filters up. This is Alan Lichtman, speaking of meltdowns, melting down. Let's see who's at the door. Here, I'm going to play this while I look at that. Listen to this.
It was some 10 million Biden voters who decided not to vote this time, and that's directly tied to misinformation. They don't like Trump, but they're thinking, well, do we really
pick up more votes this time than he did in 2016?
So, pardon me?
Did Donald Trump pick up more votes this time than he did in 2016?
Yeah,
or
but
in 2020?
Not that he picked up in 2020, the most relevant last election. He picked up about the same.
I think what I'm saying is that both sides can say things like this, like misinformation. It's hard to quantify that. If you don't let me make my points,
why do you have me on?
No, we love it. It's a conversation. It's spirited. I think there's a little bit of a delay.
We're done.
We're done.
I think we'd love.
Let me talk. What's the point?
You can.
Are you the expert or am I the expert? You can question me.
You so claim to be an expert. Yes, go ahead.
This is called wild defensiveness.
The critical thing in this election were at least 10 million Biden voters who did not vote. If even half of them had voted, this election would have been different.
We hope to have you back in 4 years. There is a little bit of a delay, Professor Lichtman, so I apologize if we were stepping on each other's toe. Our intent was, of course, to listen to what you had to say. And like you said, you were wrong. But
if even half of the 10 million who didn't vote this time around vote next time around, can you imagine being so obtuse that it doesn't connect? That maybe something happened that those... I think they've whittled it down now to like a 9 million that he doesn't connect. Maybe there was something singularly unique about those alleged 9 million allegedly constitutionally valid votes, such that would explain why they're not here now. Oh my goodness, they're gonna have to call him. They're gonna call him Alan Thickman. Alan Thickman, because he's so thick he doesn't seem to get it. Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, we got over here in our Viva Barnes Law. This is on Rumble. Viva, will you look into getting the same subscriber deal that Mug Club has so we can continue to watch on Rumble instead of having to switch over to the clunky Locals video interface? It's not a terrible idea. And I think there might be a way to do that when they seamlessly intertwine the Viva, the Locals, and the Rumble. Okay, I'll look into that. Let me screen grab that so I don't forget. Let me see if I see Barnes' screen in the bottom, but I'm not sure if his camera is not getting recognized. While we do that, let me just go down here and pull up a few more. Stingray says, thanks, Viva. My dog ran to the front door and started whining when your doorbell went off. Yeah, I'll tell you, I like the ring thing. Let's see. We got Sunshine who's asking, would it be possible to federalize the presidential and congressional elections with paper ballots, etc., to get rid of this craziness? Also, would it be possible for Trump to bring back the Smith-Mundt Act and hold the media financially responsible for their lies? We're going to get to both of those questions tonight, because I'm looking at this and saying, what the hell is going on? Like, I appreciate, first of all, federal elections are a federal issue, but I appreciate that the states run their own elections. You cannot have states counting votes 2 weeks to 4 weeks out of the election. It's impossible. It doesn't make sense. Barnes looks badass, sir. No, there's no audio yet. Well, it looks like he's trimmed his facial hair, which looks good. Let me see here. Let me make sure that it's not on my end. No, there's nothing on my end. Okay, we'll let that come up in a second. Susie C from our locals community says, "May the Barnes be with us." Well, he's here. Now we're going to get past the see, that's approved. Okay, hold on. And while we do that, let me just play one other funny thing here. There are two here. This is actually, this video, I won't play the whole thing. It's actually a great idea for a science fiction movie.
Are you distraught after the recent presidential election? Here at Don't Cry Cryo, we understand your pain, and we're here to help. Our expert team of cryogenic care providers can cryogenically freeze you until the Trump presidency has ended. No more crying,
borderline
no more
the plot
anxiety attacks,
of Total Recall,
just blissful sleep until Trump is gone.
and Interstellar.
When you awaken from your slumber, we'll even have a party ready and waiting for you. It will be like his presidency never even happened. It was all just a bad dream. As an added bonus, you can choose the Vance add-on package. We'll extend your sleep for an additional 4 years at a 50% discount
You need
in the
8
event
years.
JD Vance wins the next
You need-
presidential election. Everything will be okay. We're here to take care of you in your time of need. So remember, don't cry.
Don't worry, it's not over yet. The punchline is not over yet. Great idea, already been done. That would be
Where am I? Oh, please tell me it's over. Wait, something isn't right.
This is your captain, Elon Musk. I want to be the first one to welcome you to Mars.
Oh, you got the idea. It's classic, and it's actually a great idea for a science fiction movie. Let me see what's going on here. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. Alrighty. And I think that was entirely generated with AI, which is absolutely phenomenal. Randy Edward was actually relieved when I heard Gaetz was feeling up 17-year-old girls. Honestly thought the guy was hitting for the other day. Okay, now, first of all, they weren't 17. He's dating. He was in his 30s, and they were. It's just absolute filth, because they throw those filthy accusations out there, and they never go away. Viva, please don't merge to only Rumble. We'll lose our ability to meme. I don't think we're ever getting rid of it. We're never getting rid of locals, people. So don't worry about that. The only question is there a way to figure that out? We'll see. Alex P over on vivabarneslaw.local.com. There is no Viva Barnes without Robert. We love you, big guy. Now he's disappeared in the bottom. He'll be back. Give it a second here. Do I want to bring up the news of the day until Barnes gets here? That Biden, as his departing gift for the presidency, with November, December, 2 months left, is ostensibly, he's not declaring World War III, but he's authorizing, from what I've been able to surmise, and I'm nervous about reading not the headlines, but the early news too quickly, authorizing Zelensky to strike within Russia using American provided arms, which was the other red line that Putin said he will deem to be an act of war if it happens. There was certain types of weapons being provided, long-range missiles, and Biden providing certain weapons, just crossing over one red line after another. And on the eve of him being ousted from the office, seemingly authorizing Zelensky to do that which might provoke World War III. And who knows what happens after that. It's absurd that the only, and I'm saying, like, there's a war going on, but it really seems that there's one faction that is trying to start World War III and another faction that is, albeit waging a brutal war, not trying to escalate this to World War III. And wouldn't you know which one was which? Because it looks like it's, I dare say, not a Russian paid agent. I dare say there's only one party who's not escalated this to World War III, despite the West's and NATO's best efforts. Robert Barnes, sir, you look good.
Can you hear and see okay?
I can hear you. I can see you. You're wearing some Hunley unstructured. This is a not a throwout. It is a
It's the first channel before his 2,633 latest channels.
It's amazing. Well, and that is a, Grobert filled in for you last week, and we had a good one. But everybody,
yeah, he did.
Everyone misses the Barnes.
Hunley's great. He's got the documentary channel, the American Untold Stories, all that. It's just this was his first, which was cool.
Barnes, you haven't been able to take your victory lap for the election. I was going to make the joke like it's like you fell into you didn't fall into a coma. It's like though you disappeared and you come back and Trump is elected, Gaetz is nominated, RFK Jr. is nominated. I mean, like let's go back just to the election day. I mean, you called it, and I believe to the number. You and Barris had it 312 to 226. And
the number I predicted back in the summer was 312. I thought he could steal maybe one or two states to get to 319. Interesting note, however, if we had been properly apportioned and census hadn't made the mistakes they made in 2020, actually Trump would have hit about 319. So because of the way the Republicans were shortchanged. So I was like, man, even my alternative line would have hit. And my prediction all the way back was about 150 million voters. I couldn't decide between the lower end or the higher end of that scale. It came in with 151 million in the end. But basically kept saying, it's going to be between 150 and 155 million voters, not the 165 people we're talking about. And that the Trump, I thought, would actually win a majority. He, for the first time ever, would win the popular vote for him for the first time ever. And so I placed him at 75 to 77 million votes and Harris at 72 to 74 million votes. It right now looks like it will finish around 77 to 78 million votes for Trump, maybe a little higher, and around 74 million for Harris. Almost the exact gap, almost the exact percentages, almost the exact number of votes. Which, by the way, in 2020, I predicted Trump would win 75 million that year. And I just thought that the Democrats would be around 75 to 77. And it said it didn't, how big the other number was. Well, it turned out to be a little over 81 million. And then according to the U.S. Census, which does the best, most thorough testing of who voted in an election other than voter registration data itself, they've always reported people over-reporting. So, like, who wants to be like, oh, yeah, no way, I didn't vote, ha, ha. There's not as many of those these days. So people will tend to say they voted when they didn't. Because they'll feel bad, like, well, I was going to, yeah, I voted. But so historically, you take whoever says they voted, cut it off by about 5 million or so, the top 10, percentage or so, and that's the number you get. What has never happened before was for a census presidential election result report a year later, underreport the number of people who the election officials said voted. The census came back and said about 152 million people or so. In other words, right around the number I thought voted, and the up to 155. It was the sort of bandwidth they were in when you're operating at those statistical ranges. And by about 5-6 million Americans didn't remember voting in the 2020 election. And then here we come around 2024, and my prediction all the way back to 2020 was Trump would win unless very unusual turnout for mail-in voting occurred, and it did, just enough of it to be the margin of victory that was very thin in 3 states, Georgia, Arizona, and Wisconsin. And so Trump only needed to improve a little bit, and the fundamentals had so drastically gone in Trump's direction in the sense of what people feel about the economy, wages, jobs, chances of just living a decent life, and really sort of multiple generations. The older industrial workers in the Midwest who Trump brought back into the Republican Party, who was the heart and soul of the Republican Party not that long ago. People just forgot that part of the Republican Party. The Senator Hawley, we don't need to be in NATO, Republican Party. The Republican Party that was skeptical of the United Nations. That wasn't eager to join the latest effort. They wouldn't be bragging about it on their resume, as a certain ex-ambassador is currently. She seeks all of her new defense contract cash. Those ordinary blue collar industrial workers who were laid off, laid out, looked past. There was really kind of a mini culture war on them in the 60s. Your values are out of place, and you're the man, and all that kind of stuff. And you had the counterculture cliche of sort of films, but the beginning of sort of the working class rebellion, you can take all the way back to that. People like Amanda Milius's father, John Milius, who's done a bunch of great movies, had a little finger on Gladiator, and a little finger on Red Dawn, a little finger on Dirty Harry. That's a sign. And who's Dirty Harry? Well, he's only the next vice president's Mama's favorite iconic character from the film. And what was that about? That was about blue collar people who were not liking the sort of lefty cultural revolt of the 60s that looked down on them. They didn't want to be in the war, but don't blame them for it. They don't want to criminalize everything under the sun, but don't blame them. But don't treat their cop brother-in-law as if he's persona non grata, as if he's indistinguishable from a modern day Stasi. And so you had an older working class generation that had been rebelling since the time they came of age. The group that joined them this cycle, that Trump kind of accidentally got, and what I mean by accidentally, in that he wasn't tuned in initially. He got tuned in, and from two probably of the most unlikely sources you would have guessed 3 years ago. Which is the second revolution was the young working class. The old industrial working class had already rebelled, kept begging for somebody to stand up for them, and nobody would. And they went from Tea Party to Trump to Obama to wherever in between to try to get some sort of resolution or remedy for the old industrial working class that built this country, that's now been spat on successively generations. But now you had the young working class joining that rebellion. And they were often Latino. They were often Mexican-American or Puerto Rican or Cuban or Venezuelan or Colombian, or Jamaican. Then they would be sort of other other regions, religions, races, or groups. To the degree that you have that, the group that was supposed to build the coalition of the future Democratic Party was old labor and new labor. And the new labor was this young office space world where the kids were hip and chic, wanted to be liked by the right crowds, were the right filters on Instagrams. And they basically had their dreams crushed in the last decade as well. Socially, culturally, all the social media has been a disaster. Created the biggest wave of mental illness amongst young women we've ever experienced in such a short time frame. Then you look at it economically, they have the least prospects going forward, just as an objective and subjective matter that you can see out there. Rent's too high, can't afford a car, can't afford utilities, can't afford very basic things that make you feel proud that you delivered if you're a father, or protective if you're a mother. And so they joined. And the noises that they were going to join had been there for a little while. A lot of these people entered the crypto space. A lot of these folks were entering into the post-COVID was creating whole new coalitions across the populist left and right. And the two of the people that helped bridge the gap for Boomer Trump to pop cult populist revolution crypto led today one is a young man that almost nobody still knows, Barron Trump, who's had far greater influence than people could ever imagine behind the scenes, and may turn out his father's most natural protege in the political world. Despite my great respect for what Don Jr. and others have done in that space, Barron just I think has it to another level. And he's sort of a personification of that young person's revolution. It's like, well, I don't think we're going to be joining all you state cultists. And the other one was, to me, it was like a culmination of a bunch of different things. So, in the sense that politically, this election affords the best chance for the greatest reform on the most pressing issues I think, in American history, period. I think Trump has the, they talk about band of brothers. They talk about, putting together adversaries. Nothing compares to what you need is a group of people who've spent a better part of their lives dedicated and devoted to fixing what's wrong with our government. And a large part of that, you're going to conclude, I think, more often than not, is the government. But you don't have to share my opinion in that regard, or Ronald Reagan's in that respect, to realize there's at least an issue. And you have people like Vivek, who's obsessed with it. People like Elon Musk, who just proved what he could do at Twitter, who's obsessed with it. Just the issue of efficiency, quality, assurance, logical, rational self-interest being factored into the situation fundamentally in a responsive way that the old, frankly, political machines could do that the current administrative state cannot. And so joining those two groups, and then the other, it was to me a natural that it would come from these two circles. Because when I was a kid, after my father passed away, I had sort of huge respect for three figures that were kind of like father-like figures after my dad passed. One was Phil Fulmer, great coach of the University of Tennessee football program, and that was the beginning of our football rise. So I have a sort of a deep affiliation, as Mark Robert described. For Americans, baseball isn't really about the baseball. It's about the family, the relations between the people, and some similar sort of memorable dynamic. For me with Tennessee football, then the second was I got two books. And I carried them around everywhere, and one of them was Donald Trump's Art of the Deal. That there were parts of that book where Trump, I'll never forget this piece, but basically always plan as if you're going to win. Plan as if you're going to win. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have contingencies in case any other event occurs. Do both. In fact, expect the worst possible outcome. But at the same time, assume you're going to win. And it creates this mindset that's brilliant, that I've used my whole life. But the other book was Robert Kennedy Sr.'s To Seek a Newer World. That there was someone complaining in 1968, something has gone deeply wrong with our system and our society of government. And some people might say it started with the assassination of President John Kennedy. So, what better way to get some sort of real relief and remedy for people than we have a presidential election of a man who survived impeachment, survived indictment, survived imprisonment, survived bankruptcy, survived every smear campaign known to man, and literally survived a bullet, and can't wait to just improve the country. And you're going to have someone like Robert Kennedy, who knows more and understands health better than any health official in America by a long mile. If you don't believe me, just try to find the one that will dare to debate Robert Kennedy anywhere, any place, anytime. They have refused for decades.
We're still waiting for Peter Hotez. But Robert, the question that I had about the results, the discrepancy now is 7.5 million, give or take. And I don't think you've ever said, and I don't think we've ever said that the votes were fraudulent in the sense that people that didn't exist, but rather people that didn't know they were voting.
That's what I thought most of them were.
And now,
there might be some that had died, or some that existed but didn't exist at that address. So there's two ways to think of it. How many people voted who were legitimately trying to vote, who were legitimately qualified to vote, and something went AWOL with the ballot, and they shouldn't have been allowed to count it, but it did. So you have an honest voter, but a dishonest vote. If you define honest vote as a vote done according to the rules. Then you have dishonest votes as well, in the sense of dishonest voters and dishonest votes. How many of those we never knew? Very hard to prove. What you could prove in Arizona was that the signatures did not match on just a subsample they looked at. The Democratic Party's own expert looked at. That was 10 times greater than the size of the margin of victory. But what the judge did is he flipped the script. He said, no, now you have to prove to me that, that signature doesn't match, but it doesn't match because the person who signed it committed fraud. That's never been the legal standard. Right? That's the legal standard if you want to prosecute that individual. It's not the legal standard for whether a vote counts or not, because they know of all of these problems. So they said all that you have to prove is there is a doubt about there being a vote. And because the most effective mechanism to figure out whether there was a doubt were the signature matches, but because the courts turned around and decided they weren't going to enforce the actual signature matches, is why we had to wait in 4 years to figure out, well, who was right. Well, all the people who said it was natural, organic, authentic turnout, that even if it was a person who voted, but they absolutely, that doesn't matter, they would have voted anyway. Those people believed that there would be much higher turnout.
Mm-hmm.
They believed that we would break through and get, what was it last time? We got up to 100, right over 160. So there's about 165, the just population growth, that same voter turnout. And people like me were saying, in fact, I was shocked by it because I didn't understand why they'd replace Biden with Harris in the first place. I thought Harris was a weaker candidate. And was only in sort of watching some of their shows, some of the podcasts, who I follow anyway, that I realized the degree to which Democrats why were they guaranteed to lose 2024? Because they don't realize they lost 2020. That's why they were always guaranteed to lose 2024. Because I didn't realize until watching them that they thought all these people were, that was just a pandemic. It was just a great time to get it out that way. Like, you don't even realize, and by the way, that's the risk when you outsource fraud. The upside to outsourcing fraud is it's very tough to track from an evidentiary perspective, because like you got 10 different thief rings. Let's say they're robbing the same store, the same items, but they're 10 different thief rings, so they're probably going to execute differently. If assuming they're unrelated. That's what outsourcing the fraud meant. It meant you incentivize the nursing coordinator at the local old folks home to say, well, Betty, I'm sure Betty hates Trump, and if she could really vote, but she just can't move right now, I'm just going to help her out. Mm-hmm. And then it escalates. That's how you get, by the way, where even the system has no idea how many good or bad ballots are in there. Right? When you've outsourced it, you have no idea who's done what. You're just praying it doesn't show up in a provable way against you. And you knew that the biggest thing to do was to during the preliminary stages, say, hey, we have a lock-in signature match mechanism. No chance that there'll be anybody deny the right to vote or that will steal a vote. And one of the top election officials in Georgia had people registering to vote at his house and were illegally voting in the 2020 election. So, I mean, that's how a joke it was.
Well, just to refresh everybody's memory, because the Arizona signature match, even when the expert who came in, it was the Democrats expert who showed that it was like 10 times. Was that was in the 2020 challenge, or was that in Carrie Lake's challenge in 2022?
There was two different ones, but what we found out in 2022 was their signature matches in the government of Arizona were kind of a joke.
Yeah, like that. I forget what the thing was that they did. The woodpecker, just tick, 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 tick. See, match.
They were doing it faster than the brain could process the information.
And in Georgia, they never did not even a proper. They never did a signature match. What they did was recount the results and say, "Oh, we audited, we recounted the results, and we got the same number," but never a signature match.
They promised it all the way through the election. I know I was there on behalf of President Trump, and as soon as they got people to go off on and deep. And by the way, this was not only vindication about election 2020 was not the most fair election in history. I think we can put that myth to bed. But so we nailed that, nailed Trump winning, nailed Trump's winning margin, nailed where Trump was going to win. He was going to sweep the electoral college states. If you followed the picks we gave up over the last 2 years, you've quintupled your money at sports picks on the political bets alone after election night. Some bet people, because I gave out Trump when he was like 4-1. People forget how low it was. But the other factor so it was rebutting the people who said everything was fine with the election, rebutting the people who were saying the polls were right and that there was nothing to doubt about this election, polls accuracy. In terms of what actually happened, all the models again, pretty much all but one, I believe, picked Harris to win. Barris was one of the only pollsters, along with Rasmussen and Atlas, to say, we think it's going to be Trump. Richard Barris at People's Pundit Daily. But the other one is but he was one of the only people, and I was the only one talking about Trump winning out of all the so-called models, experts, etc. Before anybody else was. So but the other factor is, remember how much crap we put up with for 2 years of people who said that you couldn't have an honest election, that it wasn't possible, they would never let Trump get it, that Barnes is naive, you're living in a fantasy land. I live and defend these cases every single day and have for better part of a quarter century. So naivete is not something you'll often hear me accused of in the legal context or political context. It was a belief that the system fears you, the ordinary person. And that's what the ordinary person constantly and continuously forgets, is that they didn't do all this censorship because your opinion doesn't matter.
Robert, the question is that I've been having, first of all, and everybody's been asking it. We'll get into why the hell they're still counting votes in 2024. Can they go back and look at, like, with hypothetically the fraud or the constitutional violations that occurred in 2020 were, let's just say, ballot harvesting at old people's homes. How would you even determine that by way of forensic audit 4 years down the line? Is there anything anybody can do? They want to audit 2024, do it, and do 2020 at the same time.
Yeah, you can do that a bunch of different ways. The government can do it through its own internal procedures. You could have the DOJ have a task force that uses grand jury powers if need be. But you could have an honest account of the 2020 election and the controversies related thereto, which ones got resolved and didn't get resolved. Congress has that power through its investigative power in support of new laws. That's how the January 6th committee existed. That was a real stretch of interpreting that law. And the Justice Department can do a bunch of stuff. Governors can do things in parallel, working together. I mean, when you're talking about Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, and here's the other people I've been dealing with. People that were either first pushing back, saying I shouldn't be promoting Kennedy, that I shouldn't be promoting a Kennedy-Trump unity ticket, that I shouldn't be promoting J.D. Vance, that I was backing the wrong VP, and Viva and I didn't know what we were doing, and he was going to be such a terrible candidate. Literally, it's been every prediction. Not only we nailed it, the other side has been dead wrong, and every side has been dead wrong. Oh, they're going to steal it. You have to doom. And I've been saying for 4 years, no, you don't. And guess what? No, you didn't. So so that doesn't mean you don't stay awake or alert. It just means don't be tempted by dooming. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled is convincing people he doesn't exist. The greatest trick the system can pull is convincing you cannot resist. Donald Trump answered that question loud and clear for everybody. You can impeach me, indict me, try to bankrupt me, even kill me. And guess what? Papa Joe be sitting there shaking my hand on Monday in the White House, just like he was.
Robert, what we're going to do, I'm going to give everybody the link. Start bringing your butts on over to Rumble. What I'll do before we get there, so that I don't lose these CommieTube super chats, I'll just read a bunch now that I can see. Not a Band account says Alex Jones must serve as press secretary. That's a good one that we've seen. Jay Mill, who I remember from back in the day because you have a beautiful, it's either a Dolly Varden or a brown trout in your avatar, says, I remember when I first started watching you guys, y'all did phenomenal job helping everyone keep a healthy perspective after 2020. Look at us now. It's a different world now. Bro Joe's 420 Cafe says Trump, the only one to beat 2 women for presidency. Eaters of Dead says MAGA's changes are good. How do we secure them for the next 250 years? I don't want the next president or few to get elected and undo everything. That's going to be the next question that I have coming in as we go over to, come on over to Rumble, people. Oscar Gonzalez, U.S. President Joe Biden has given the green light for Ukraine to use long-range missiles supplied by the U.S. to strike Russia, which I believe is will be deemed to be an act of war if Ukraine actually does it. Sun Wukong says, Barnes, it's good to see you well and kicking. God bless your health. I'm praying for you. Have a full recovery. Scroll down a little bit more. And okay, so I think I've got all of them. And if I missed any, I apologize. Robert, the question is this. Okay, and maybe I'll ask it and then you'll field it on Rumble. Why the hell are they still counting votes in California? And the broader question is, it's a federal election. I mean, if one state messes around and, it hypothetically can change everything, they're disenfranchising the entire country. So how does one state get to enact state federal election procedure that could risk disenfranchising everybody out there? And start answering. I'm going to wait for the number to go under 5,000 on YouTube before I cut the feed. And come over to Rumble. The link is up there in the pinned comment. What can the feds do to federalize this so that states like Pennsylvania is still counting, flipping seats, California is still counting, changing the popular vote so now they can say, oh, well, Trump got under 50% of the popular vote, so that means he doesn't have a mandate. It's obvious fuckery, and I apologize for the swear. It's obvious fraud. It's obvious. I mean, the longer they count, the more they find 25,000 ballots that are 10-1 in favor of Kamala that are going to change the popular vote discrepancy. What can be done to stop this?
Well, I mean, there's a range of things that legally could have been done, but the courts have, cut them off at different angles. So there's places where the courts won't get involved no matter what's happening. There's circumstances where they say nobody can challenge, even the agency that's being harmed can't challenge. So they've come up with all these different procedural technical mechanisms to make it difficult to have a uniform election law in the United States, because you have elections for the presidency that's governed by one set of laws, elections to Congress governed by a different